Hi everybody, it's Rebecca, Virginia, and today I'm going to show you how to do 4 rustic farmhouse DIYs. The first DIY in this rustic farmhouse collection is a Believe ornament sign. Here's what you need to recreate it. The first step in this DIY is to take off this metal ornament topper, and we're just going to place it to the side because we will be using it again at the end. Now I'm going to be making a faux galvanized finish to the middle part of my ornament. So first I'm painting it solid gray, then I'm going in with a sponge and sponging it with some black paint. Then you want to go in with some gray paint and keep dabbing until the paints merge and you get the look you want to achieve. I'm going to be covering the top and bottom of my ornament with the black and white scrapbooking paper, so I'm placing the ornament face down and just tracing it out onto the scrapbooking paper before I cut. I placed the black and white buffalo check paper on top of my ornament sign and just made little marks of where the faux galvanizing paint started and where it ended, so I knew how to cut my scrapbooking paper. Now I'm applying some Mod Podge onto the sign and putting down that scrapbooking paper and smoothing out any air bubbles with an old gift card. I'm re-gluing down the silver ornament topper that we had removed before, and now because I want there to be a clear border between the scrapbooking paper and the faux galvanized paint, I just took some black paint and a paintbrush and made a solid border line in between the two. If you also wanted to make a border on your ornament sign but maybe didn't want to use paint, you could add some ribbon, some scrap fabric, or even some more scrapbooking paper. This Believe sign came in a set of 3 at the Dollar Tree, so you could use any in that set or another sign that you might have on hand. To embellish the sign, I made a double bow out of burlap and buffalo check ribbon. Then I hot glued it to the top of the ornament. To add some color and foliage to my sign, I added some boxwood sprigs as well as some holly berries. And that's everything you need to complete your Believe ornament sign. The second DIY is a Mary sign. Here's everything that you'll need to complete this project on your own. Before I added down any of the scrapbooking paper, I first painted the R's. For the first R, I decided to do a faux galvanized technique. To do this, I'm painting the R entirely in a gray color. Then I took a sponge and sponged it over with black in all sorts of different directions, not keeping any kind of uniformity. It looks way better when you just do it kind of messy and don't have too much rhyme or reason to it. Then I went over it again with the gray paint to mute down some of that black. Now I'm taking this black paint and painting the entire Mary sign in this color. The reason that I'm doing this is on the M, the E, and the Y, I am going to be adding down some scrapbooking paper, but in between the letters, I wanted it to be a black color and not the natural wood. Then I took some of this wood scrapbooking paper and I'm using that to cover the Y, which is also a deer head on the Mary sign. So I placed it down onto the scrapbooking paper and traced it out, and then I cut it and Mod Podged it down onto the Y. Now I'm doing the exact same thing with the M and the E. For the E, I chose a burlap looking scrapbooking paper, and for the M, I went with more of this black and white buffalo check pattern. So again, I'm just tracing those down onto the scrapbooking paper, cutting them out, and using some Mod Podge to adhere them to the wood sign. I thought the sign was complete, but to add a little extra something, I took some jute and made a jute bow and added that to the Y on the Mary. The next DIY is a trees for sale frame decor. Here are the supplies you'll need to recreate this project. I started this DIY by dismantling the BU shadowbox frame. The BU inside area is going to be covered with scrapbooking paper, so I placed it down onto the paper and cut out the shape. Then it was time to glue on the scrapbooking paper to the back side of that area. The reason I glued down the scrapbooking paper to the back instead of the front was because the BU front section had this really textured, almost bubbly feeling to it, and I knew that the scrapbooking paper wouldn't lay down flat without air bubbles if I placed it on that side. Then I took a wood block and one of these wood Christmas tree truck ornaments from the Dollar Tree. I painted both, first the truck with red and green, and then I made a little Xmas trees for sale sign. I placed the scrapbooking section back inside the frame and placed out where I was going to put the truck and where I was going to put the sign, just so I made sure I had the measurements and where I want it to go perfectly before I went and glued it down. Once I had the truck ornament glued down, I went ahead and put my frame back together and put down the Xmas trees for sale sign and hot glued it. If you're gifting this DIY, you can always cover the back in paint or even some more scrapbooking paper. The last DIY in this Rustic Farmhouse series is a rustic woodland scene. Here's everything that you'll need to create this DIY on your own. To start this DIY, I took a white deer ornament from the Dollar Tree and painted it entirely in black paint. Then I dismantled this shadowbox frame and painted it black as well. To add a rustic feel around the frame, I took some jute cord and hot glued it all the way around. To cover the old shadowbox frame, I took buffalo check scrapbooking paper and traced all around the frame. Then I cut it out and Mod Podged it down, again using an old gift card to smooth out any air bubbles. Now the fun part begins because you get to start decorating the inside of your shadow box. So I wanted to create a tall tree, so to do that I took two of these smaller wood tree ornaments from the Dollar Tree and painted them green. Then I added little flecks of snow using white paint and just flicking them off of the paintbrush. Then I hot glued one on top of the other to give the illusion of a larger tree. To hide the area where the two trees meet, I took this Believe ornament and I really liked the foliage that was attached to it, so I just ripped it off of that ornament and hot glued the little parts that I liked onto my ornaments. So I couldn't get the deer to fit inside the frame, but I found you could easily split him into two, and then I just put one half of him down inside the frame. Now I am staining a star with some water, some paint, and I just used a wet paper towel. I felt like my shadow box needed a little bit more inside, but I also didn't want to clutter it too much, so I just took these two small silver jingle bells and added them to the corner of the frame. After I hot glued my wood star to the top of the trees, I opened up the frame and added a little bit of fake snow to the bottom of the frame. After adding the glass back into the frame, I added a little bit of embellishment from that ornament I had used earlier. It was some sprigs of pine, a bow, and a little holly, so I added that as well. Then it was time to add the hanging portion of the frame, so I just took some jute and hot glued it. Then, after I had worked so hard earlier to put jute all the way around the frame, I felt like it was way too busy and just taking away from the beauty of the frame that I had created. So I took all the jute back off the frame, and I like how that came out a lot better. Thanks for watching my Rustic Farmhouse DIYs. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below if you want to see more videos from me. Until next time, keep searching, keep creating.